You wake up every day before the sun rises. You catch the crowded bus, work 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. You come home exhausted, your back aching, your eyes tired, your mind drained, and at the end of the month, when you look at your bank account, the number there is almost the same as 6 months ago. Maybe even lower, because some unexpected expense always pops up. You push yourself harder than many people around you. You're disciplined. You don't miss work. You put in overtime when you can. But the question that just won't go away is this: why does it feel like the harder you work, the less you advance? Why does that colleague who barely breaks a sweat seem to be doing better? Why do you feel like you're running faster and faster just to stay in the same place? I know exactly what you're feeling, because over more than 7 decades of observing human behavior around money, I've seen this same story repeat itself millions of times. And today, I need to tell you a truth that will hurt at first, but can completely change your life if you truly understand it. Working hard won't make you rich. It never has. It never will. And it's not for lack of effort. It's because you're playing a completely different game than you imagine. Most people believe wealth is a simple equation. Work plus effort equals money. They think if they just keep working hard enough, at some point, they'll cross an invisible line and finally achieve financial security. They are profoundly mistaken, and it's not their fault. This belief has been ingrained in our culture as if it were absolute truth. From childhood, you've been told you need to study, work hard, be honest, put in overtime, and that this will lead you to success. But here's the problem. This formula works for a specific type of person, but it's not for you. It works for those who already have capital, for those who are already in a position where their effort can be multiplied by systems, assets, and leverage. For those starting from zero or stuck in the middle of the pyramid, working hard just keeps you exactly where you are. It's like trying to get out of a hole by digging deeper. The harder you push within the wrong paradigm, the further you get from the freedom you seek. Let me explain what's really happening. Hard work isn't the problem. The problem is that hard work alone is a currency that depreciates over time. When you sell hours for money, you're selling the only truly finite resource you possess, your lifespan. And here's the part most people don't realize. The value of an hour of manual or non-specialized intellectual labor has a natural tendency to decrease over time. Why? Because there will always be someone willing to do the same job for less. Because technology is constantly replacing repetitive human work. Because the market doesn't reward effort, it rewards results. And results, my friend, are not necessarily proportional to effort. Now comes the hard part to swallow. You know someone who works 3 times harder than you and earns 10 times less? Of course you do. You've probably been that person at some point, and you also know someone who seems to work less and earns much more. The difference isn't in the effort, it's in the nature of the work. It's in which game that person is playing. There's a fundamental difference between work that scales and work that doesn't scale. Non-scalable work is anything where your reward is directly tied to the number of hours you put in. You work 1 hour, you earn X. You work 10 hours, you earn 10X. Simple, linear, and completely limited by the number of hours in a day. Scalable work is completely different. It's when you create something once, and that something can generate returns infinitely without requiring proportionally more of your time. It's writing a book that sells for decades. It's creating a system that works without you. It's building assets that work while you sleep. But here's the real problem few understand. It's not just about scaling or not scaling. It's about something much deeper that I call the linearity trap. Most people live in a mental world where everything's linear. If I work twice as hard, I'll earn twice as much. If I save $100 a month, in 10 years, I'll have $12,000. They calculate the future as if it were a straight line from the present. But the real world doesn't work like that. The real world is exponential. It has tipping points, it has compound effects, it has non-linear acceleration. And if you don't understand this, you'll spend your entire life pushing a boulder uphill without realizing there's a different path beside you. Let me give you a concrete example I've observed countless times. Two people start with the same salary, let's say $3,000 a month. The first person thinks, I'll work hard, put in overtime, maybe get a second job, and I'll save as much as I can. She manages to save $500 a month. In a year, she has $6,000 saved. She feels proud, and she should, because discipline is admirable. But let's do the math. If she continues on this exact trajectory for 20 years, saving $500 a month, she'll have $120,000, not counting inflation, not counting emergencies, not counting that she'll probably need that money for unexpected events along the way. Now let's look at the second person. He also earns $3,000. But instead of focusing solely on saving, he does something different. He takes $200 a month, less than the first person saves, and invests it in learning a skill that the market values. It could be programming, it could be sales, it could be design, it could be traffic management, something in demand and scalable. For the first 6 months, he sees no return. He's sacrificing $1,200 he could have saved. But in the 7th month, he lands a freelance gig that pays $1,000. By the 10th month, $2,000. By the 15th month, he's earning an extra $5,000 a month doing side work. And now he can save much more than $500 a month. He can save $2,000, $3,000 a month. And not only that, he's understood the game. He's learned that value doesn't come from hours worked, it comes from problems solved. It comes from rare skills. It comes from leverage. And here I want to pause because this is important. If what I'm describing resonates with you, if you've ever found yourself thinking that no matter how hard you work, it never seems to be enough, I want you to do something now. Type in the comments, I am stuck in the linearity trap. It's not just for you. Because when you put that out there, when you publicly acknowledge where you are, you're taking the first step out. And others who are in the same boat will read your comment and realize they're not alone. That's the beginning of real change. Acknowledging without judgment, without shame, just with clarity. So go ahead, drop a comment now. I read every single one, and you have no idea how many lives can be touched when you have the courage to be honest. Now let's dive deep into the second trap. The trap of diminishing returns on effort. There's a principle in economics that few people apply to their own lives. It's the law of diminishing returns. Basically, when you add more of one resource while keeping others constant, there comes a point where each additional unit of that resource produces less and less output. Translating that to real life. Your first hour of work in the day is productive. Your 8th hour is already less productive. Your 12th hour is almost unproductive. You're tired. Your mind isn't firing on all cylinders. You make mistakes. You make bad decisions. But most people don't grasp this. They think if working 12 hours is good, working 14 hours is better. And it's the exact opposite. You're burning through your most valuable resource, your physical and mental energy, for ever decreasing returns. I've seen it happen over and over. People working so hard they get sick. People so exhausted they can't think strategically. People so busy grinding that they have no time to learn, to plan, to build systems. And here's the cruel irony. The people working fewer hours but more strategically often earn more than those working themselves to the bone. Why? Because they preserve mental energy to think, to create, to identify opportunities, to build relationships, to learn. Dumb hard work is just a waste of life. Smart strategic work is what changes trajectories. But there's a third, even more insidious trap. The trap of replaceability. The more generic your work, the more easily you can be replaced. And the more easily you can be replaced, the less negotiation power you have, the less value you capture. If what you do can be done by 100 other people with the same skill level, you're in a commodity market. And in commodity markets, the price always trends downward, always, no matter how hard you work. You're competing with people willing to work for less. You're competing with automation. You're competing with outsourcing to countries with lower cost of living. Now, here's the truth nobody wants to hear, but needs to be said. If you're making the same amount of money 3 years in, doing the same job, you're not stagnating, you're regressing. Why? Because inflation is eroding your purchasing power. Because the market is evolving. Because new skills are emerging, and you're standing still, doing the same things, expecting different results. This isn't hard work. This is spinning your wheels. It's the illusion of progress. You're busy, you're tired, you're doing things, but you're not moving forward. So what do? How do you break free from these traps? This is where the conversation gets practical. First thing, you need to shift your unit of success. Stop measuring your worth by the number of hours logged. Start measuring by the impact created, by the revenue generated, by the problem solved, by the results delivered. If you're in a job where your only metric is showing up for 8 hours a day, you're in the wrong place. Either change the nature of your work within that place or change your place. Because time isn't the currency of wealth. Value is. Second thing, invest in skills that scale. Learn to sell, learn to communicate, learn to create, learn to build systems, learn to code, learn to manage people. Learn anything that multiplies the value of your hour of work. If you're making $3 or all dollars a month and you spend all your free time watching TV or complaining on social media, you're choosing to stay exactly where you are. But if you take an hour or two a day and invest it in learning something the market values, you're planting seeds that will grow exponentially. It might not feel like much at first. For the first few months, you'll see zero results. But in a year, 2 years, you'll look back and realize those hours were the most valuable you ever invested in your life. Third thing, build assets, not just income. The big difference between people who work hard and stay poor and people who work smart and get rich is that the former accumulate income, the latter accumulate assets. Income is what you earn this month. An asset is what continues to generate income without you working. It could be a business, it could be investments, it could be intellectual property, it could be an audience that trusts you. It could be strategic relationships. It could be specialized knowledge that few people possess. But it has to be something that functions independently of you actively working on it at that moment. Fourth thing, learn to say no. Most people overwork themselves because they don't know how to say no. They accept every task that comes their way, every request for overtime, every side project that doesn't lead them anywhere. And then they become too busy to do what actually matters. Your energy is limited. Your time is limited. Your attention is limited. If you spend those resources on low-value things, you'll have nothing left for high-value things. Being busy is not a virtue. It's often a form of procrastination. You're so busy putting out small fires that you don't have time to build the irrigation system that would prevent the fires. Fifth thing, understand leverage. Leverage is doing the work once and getting paid many times over. It's using tools that multiply your effort. It's using other people's time and money to achieve your goals. It's building systems that run without you. Rich people use leverage all the time. They don't work more hours. They work with more leverage. A writer writes a book once, sells millions of copies. An entrepreneur builds a business, hires people, multiplies their delivery capacity. An investor uses money to make more money. A content creator makes something once, reaches millions. It's not about working harder. It's about working in a way that your effort multiplies. And now comes the part that ties all of this together. The real reason why working hard doesn't make you rich isn't because working hard is bad. It's because working hard without strategic direction is just movement without progress. It's like running on a treadmill. You're tired, you're sweating, you're exhausted, but you haven't gone anywhere. Wealth doesn't come from brute force effort. Wealth comes from directed effort. It comes from solving valuable problems. It comes from creating value the market wants to pay for. It comes from positioning your work so you capture a larger share of the value you create. It comes from building assets that appreciate over time. It comes from systems that work without you. The math is brutal but clear. If you sell hours, you're limited to 24 hours in a day. And you can't work 24 hours. You need to sleep, eat, live. So at best, you have maybe 12 sellable hours a day. And if you sell those 12 hours at $50 an hour, you'll make $600 a day, $18,000 a month if you work every single day. But you won't be able to sustain that pace. You'll get sick. You'll burn out. You'll lose relationships. You'll destroy your health. And in the end, you're still not rich. You're just a little less poor, but completely exhausted. Now compare that to someone building a system. That person might work hard for 2 years building something: software, an online course, a business, a YouTube channel, a book, anything that can scale. In the first few months, they earn almost nothing. They might even be losing money. But they're not selling hours. They're building an asset. And when that asset finally works, it can generate unlimited income. It can generate $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month. And not because they're working more hours, but because they built something that scales, something that multiplies, something that works whether they're sleeping or awake. I know this sounds unfair to those working hard right now and barely making ends meet, but the truth needs to be told. The system wasn't designed to reward effort. It was designed to reward value created, and value created isn't always correlated with effort put in. A programmer can create a piece of code in an afternoon that saves a company millions of dollars. A salesperson can close a deal in a 2-hour meeting that generates hundreds of thousands in revenue. An investor can make a decision in 5 minutes that returns millions over the years. The effort was small. The value created was enormous. And here's the final lesson about hard work. Hard work is necessary, but not sufficient. You need to work hard, yes, but you need to work hard on the right things. Working hard at a job that leads nowhere is a waste. Working hard on skills that don't scale is a waste. Working hard without learning is a waste. Working hard without building assets is a waste. You need to be strategic. You need to be intentional. You need to think in terms of systems, not tasks. In terms of assets, not income. In terms of leverage, not hours. I'll tell you something I've learned observing thousands of people throughout my life. The most successful people I've met aren't necessarily the ones who work the most hours. They're the ones who work on the most important things. They have brutal clarity on what moves the needle, and they ignore everything that doesn't. They don't get busy. They get productive. They don't accumulate tasks. They accumulate results. They don't sell time. They sell transformation. If this content is making sense to you, if you're starting to see that maybe you've been playing the wrong game, hit that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Because what I'm sharing here isn't abstract theory. It's wisdom distilled from decades of observation. And there's a lot more you need to understand about how money really works. So let's quickly recap, because this is important. Working hard doesn't make you rich, because hard work alone is linear and the world is exponential. Because hard work without strategic direction is just movement without progress. Because you're selling hours in a world that rewards results. Because you're in commodity markets where there will always be someone willing to work for less. Because you're focused on accumulating income when you should be focused on building assets. Because you don't understand leverage. Because you're not developing skills that scale. Because you're so busy working that you don't have time to think strategically. But here's the good news. You can change this. You don't need to work less. You need to work differently. You need to redirect your effort. Instead of working more hours at the same job that keeps you stuck, work on learning something new, on building something of your own, on developing a rare skill, on creating an asset. It could be an hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever you can fit in. But that 1 hour invested strategically is worth more than 10 hours of generic work, because that 1 hour is moving you towards a different game, a game where your effort multiplies, where your value increases, where you have control over your trajectory. And here's what nobody tells you. The first few months will be frustrating. You'll invest time learning and see no immediate return. You'll feel tempted to quit and go back to just working more hours at what you already do. But if you persist, if you keep investing in yourself, in valuable skills, in building assets, there will come a tipping point. It might take 6 months. It might take 2 years, but it will come. And when it does, when you finally start seeing the compound results of your investment in yourself, everything changes. Suddenly, you're not competing for scraps anymore. You're creating real value. You're being paid for what you deliver, not for the hours you put in. You have options. You have negotiating power. You have freedom. True wealth isn't about having a lot of money. It's about having options. It's about not depending on a single job, a single client, a single income stream. It's about having skills the market values. It's about having assets that generate passive income. It's about having systems that work without you. It's about having the freedom to choose what to work on, who to work with, when to work. And none of that comes from just working hard. All of that comes from working strategically, from thinking long term, from investing in yourself, from building things that last. So here's my challenge to you. Stop right now and think. What are you working hard at that isn't getting you anywhere? What hours are you selling that you could be investing in building something of your own? What skills could you develop that would multiply the value of your hour of work? What systems could you create that would work without you? These aren't easy questions, but they are the right questions. And if you start answering them honestly and acting on those answers, everything changes. You don't need luck. You don't need connections. You don't need a massive amount of startup capital. You need clarity on how the game is played. You need to understand that value created matters more than effort put in. That rare skills are more valuable than generic work. That assets trump income. That systems beat tasks. That strategic thinking beats blind effort. And when you grasp that, when you truly internalize that truth, you stop just working hard and start working smart. You stop trading time for money and start building machines that make money. You stop being busy and start being productive. And here's the final part, the part that matters most. Your life is made of choices. Every time you choose to binge watch Netflix instead of learning a new skill, you're choosing to stay put. Every time you choose to complain instead of build, you're choosing to be a victim. Every time you choose to put in more hours at the same dead-end job instead of investing time into creating something new, you're choosing the security of today over the freedom of tomorrow. And these choices stack up. They compound over time. In 5 years, you'll look back and either thank yourself for starting today or regret not starting. Financial freedom isn't a destination. It's a choice you make every single day. It's choosing to learn over to be entertained. It's choosing to build over to consume. It's choosing to invest in yourself over spending every dollar you earn. It's choosing to think long-term over immediate gratification. It's choosing to own your time over selling your time. And these choices, accumulated day after day, month after month, year after year, are what separate the people who work hard and stay broke from the people who work smart and get rich. It's not luck. It's not privilege. It's choice. Consistent choice day in and day out to do the hard thing today for the easy thing tomorrow. Thanks for watching. And if you made it this far to this very last sentence, that tells me something incredibly important about you. You're different. You're not looking for get-rich-quick schemes or impossible shortcuts. You're looking for deep understanding. You want to know how things really work, not just hear what's comfortable. And that's precisely the kind of person who builds real wealth, because wealth starts with mental clarity, with understanding the game before you play it, with asking the hard questions and accepting the uncomfortable answers. I built this channel for exactly that, to bring you truths most people will never tell you, to share wisdom I painstakingly accumulated over decades, to help you see the financial world as it truly is, not as you've been sold it should be. If this resonates with you, if you want to be part of a community of people who think differently about money, who refuse to accept mediocrity as destiny, who are willing to do the real work of transformation, hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications. Every week, I drop deep dives into wealth, mindset, and financial freedom. It's not about getting rich fast. It's about building a completely new relationship with money, a relationship built on understanding, strategy, and consistent action. You're not alone on this journey. Thousands of people here are on the same path, and together we understand what most never will. See you in the next video.